Okay, it's recording.
Okay, we'll try that again. 6:32 p.m. We're going to call the meeting to order. Notice is hereby given that a regular meeting of the City Council of the City of Sandy Oaks, Texas will be held on Thursday, September 10th, 2020 at 6:30 p.m. at Sandy Oaks City Hall, located at 4451 Hickory Haven, Sandy Oaks, Texas 78112, which will be live streamed and accessible to the public as provided below for the purpose of considering the following agenda items. All agenda items are subject to action. In an effort to advance the public health goal of limiting face-to-face meetings, also called social distancing, to slow the spread of coronavirus, COVID-19, there will be no in-person public access to the meeting. In accordance with the order of the Office of the Governor issued March 16, 2020, the City of Sandy Oaks will provide a live stream video and telephonic access of the meeting to the public. A recording of the telephonic meeting will be made and will be available to the public in accordance with the Texas Public Information Act upon written request. Ms. Shelton, can we get a quorum call? Stand for Pledge of Allegiance. Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 4 on the agenda item 3, citizens to be heard. Ms. Shelton, I think I had one here, the citizen to be heard. Did you receive any others?
No, just one.
And do we have our guest on?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so I'll continue reading. Citizens to be heard. Persons wishing to speak may sign up with the city clerk at least 2 hours in advance of the meeting by emailing cityclerk@cityofsandyoaks.com or calling 210-607-0834. Please note that the Texas Open Meetings Act prohibits the City Council from responding, commenting, or discussing items or topics during the portion of the meeting that are not included on the agenda. The City Council appreciates hearing from the citizens, and your thoughts and questions are valued. However, civility and a sense of decorum will be strictly followed. All speakers must address their comments to City Council. Speakers shall refrain from public criticism of members of the City Council that are prohibited by law. This item will be open for up to 30 minutes with 3 minutes to each speaker. One person may speak on behalf of a group. Up to 3 persons may register on behalf of the group in order for the spokesperson to be allotted up to 9 minutes to speak. If there are more than 10 speakers, each will be given 2 minutes or 6 minutes for a group spokesperson. So I do have right here. Pastor Frank Pomeroy would like to sign up to speak at the upcoming City Council meeting. Do we have Pastor Pomeroy on the line?
We do. I'm just needing him to unmute himself.
Yes, I am here.
Oh, there he is.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, guys. I appreciate the opportunity to share with you guys.
Hey, let me you got 3 minutes.
Okay. I am just coming in to Zoom with you guys just to introduce myself. My name is Pastor Frank Pomeroy. I am running for Senate District 21 against a 33-year incumbent, Judith Zaffirini. And I do have some of the southern part of Bexar County there, precincts 1057, 1102, and 1107. And I just wanted to kind of introduce myself and let everyone know that I am here. As many of you guys probably know over the last several months, there's been a distinction that has been made between myself and the party of my opponent. And I just want to try to get out there and let folks know that I do believe that we need to get back to our family values and morals and ethics within our government system again. And in so doing, I'm humbly requesting everyone's vote. I'm trying to get everywhere in 18 counties. I'm in Laredo right now at another campaign event, actually, and trying to just let everyone know where we're at and what we're doing. So I would like to invite everybody, if they really want to know where my platforms are and where I stand. I'm going to be El Guerro Loco at the Shops of Sandy Oaks on September 15th, Tuesday, 11 to 1. I have a website, PomeroyForTexasSenate.com as well. That way we can talk about politics and the stands and the things that are going on in this nation and the things we can do to protect our state and insulate our state from many of the things that are transpiring throughout the rest of this country. And hopefully we can continue to be the adult in the room when the rest of the country keeps throwing their fits. So that's what I wanted to address, guys, just to get my name there.
Perfect. Thank you for joining us, and look forward to meeting you on Tuesday, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Tuesday, September 15th, 11 to 1.
11 to 1. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I hope y'all have a blessed meeting and a good rest of your evening as well.
Thank you. You too.
All right. God bless. Bye-bye.
And do we have any others, Catherine, to speak?
No, that was it.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to item number 4, the financial and budget report. The income and expenses will be reported by City Clerk Catherine Yelton, and possible discussion and action.
You might come over here to just use the microphone.
Okay, so for the beginning balance as of August 1st, 2020 was $106,561.27. We had checks and payments of $74,358.92. Credits of $61,463.42. That would leave a cleared balance of $93,665.77. When I reconciled, we still had two outstanding, or actually, no, I'm sorry, just one outstanding item of $184.43. So as of August 31st, 2020, we did have an ending balance of $93,481.34.
Any questions from council? Would anyone like to make a motion on the financial report? And we have a motion by Alderman Martino to approve the financial report as presented. Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Alderman Bellinger seconds. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
That is unanimous. That motion carries. Item number 5, consent agenda. All matters listed under consent agenda are considered routine by the City Council of the City of Sandy Oaks and will be enacted by one motion. There will not be separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. We have 2 items on here, and I know that, did you get the 27 minutes? Is that what showed up here just a little bit ago?
Yes.
Okay. So items A and B. A is approve the minutes from the August 13th regular City Council meeting, and item B is approve the minutes from the August 27th regular council meeting.
Having read the minutes, I'd like to move that we approve the consent agenda. I'll second.
We have a motion by Alderman Fillinger to approve the consent agenda as presented and a second by Alderman Rapino. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. It's unanimous. Catherine, do me a favor, since I'm not logged into Zoom on this computer. Cassandra is on the phone, so make sure that if she has commentary that,
I'll let you know if she raises her hand.
okay.
Mayor, I was going to add some of the aldermen are a little difficult to hear. I don't know if their mic is on. Alderman Rapino and Alderman Fillinger, who were speaking, are a little difficult to hear.
Okay, thank you. We'll make sure to. Yeah, but you got to pull the microphone down into your face. Aye. Okay, item 6. The time is, hold on. We're gonna skip around. We're gonna go to item 8. And item 8 is for the Marshal Department, updates and announcements from Marshal Lopez and possible discussion action. I will tell you that for each of the, this is something new on the agenda this time, for each of the different departments, there is an area at the beginning that will allow for any updates or announcements that need to be made. These cannot be items that require any action or even future action. An example, the reason we're doing this is between the Parks Committee, the Animal Control Committee, things that the Marshal and everyone's working on may happen after an agenda is posted. And rather than have to wait until a subsequent meeting, this is an opportunity just for an announcement to be made. And Ms. Shelton has a question. Go ahead.
Cassandra did mention about putting in possible discussion and action in case there is any discussion or action taken.
Yeah.
So,
I think we can, but I just for this purpose, really my intent was just to have an opportunity for any updates or announcements that may be coming up between now and the next meeting. So with that, I'll ask you first, Marshal Lopez, do you have any announcements that you'd like to make? Okay, that's a no. So we will move on. Okay, item 8B is presentation of the monthly report by Marshal Lopez with possible discussion and or action.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, council. So for the month of August, for activity of what we've been doing within the city. So for the court defendants for the month of August was 33 court defendants. Cases with the court defendants was 53 cases. In the month of August, we had 134 traffic stops, 123 citations, and 91 warnings within the month. Also in the month of August, we had 13 arrests, 13 more than what we had last year. So that's very up in numbers. Assaults, we had 5 assaults. And then we had 1 burglary of a vehicle, 8 civil matters within the month of August, and then 5 junk vehicle warnings on those vehicles. Also 3 disturbances within the city, 1 emergency detention, 5 EMS assist calls for that category, 1 information call, 1 suspicious call for us, 5 thefts within the city, and then 3 welfare concerns, 3 assist other agencies assisting Bexar County when they need help as well. 2 animal calls as well, 1 harassment call, and then 1 identity theft, 1 vehicle crash, 1 criminal trespass within the city, animal cruelty case, 1 patrol by, 1 recovered property, 1 missing person, and 1 illegal dumping. These are calls for service within the city, and resulting in traffic stops, of course, 13 vehicles within the city for no insurance. And if you look at the month of August for arrest, you'll see the individuals that have been arrested for various laws, traffic warrants as well, assault bodily injuries, SAPD traffic warrants, Bexar County warrants, Atascosa County warrant as well. The remaining SAPD warrants, and then the remaining was for assault bodily injury within the city.
Any questions from council for Marshall Lopez?
Yes, Alderman Trumbull. On the towed vehicles for no insurance, I noticed it's the first month that that you're doing that. Is this a policy? Stop vehicle without insurance, it will be towed?
That is correct. The law requires you to have motor vehicle insurance on that vehicle. You don't have any insurance, obviously, in that case, your vehicle is going to get towed. Just, something happens, you don't have insurance. Like I said, law requires you to have insurance, even the minimum insurance. But if you have zero insurance or unable to confirm or show a hard copy, then your vehicle will be towed for no insurance.
Oh, I totally appreciate that, being a victim of car.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Wait, you need to speak into the microphone.
Oh, yeah. If you don't have your card, is it not possible to check whether you have a valid insurance over the computer? I've seen that happen before.
Yes, we're able to, anytime we run a vehicle, it gives a list of information, whether your insurance is confirmed. However, with that, a lot of the big agencies such as USAA, State Farm, Allstate are able to provide that information. The small mom and pops are not always able to update that information in the system. So depending on what we have and what they have, if it shows us unconfirmed and then they have a hard copy that's expired or not up to date, or they're unable to look it on a mobile device, it just depends on those factors. But if they're completely, unable to show a hard copy or a mobile device, those two other things, and then we take action.
Okay.
I go back and just to clarify. So they don't have insurance. The law requires that they show proof of insurance, correct?
Yes.
That's the fine. Thank you.
Yeah, either a hard copy or your through your insurance carrier through your mobile device.
We don't need to take any action on that, so thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the council.
And you are free to stay or you may go. I know it's been a long day.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, so we will move on to item 9A. Animal control updates and announcements from Animal Control Advisory Committee Chair CJ Walker and possible discussion or action. Ms. Walker, do you have any announcements?
The only announcement is we are having an Animal Control Advisory Committee meeting on Monday night at 6:30. And the agenda will be available tomorrow.
Thank you. It is a Zoom meeting, yes. 9B, presentation of the monthly report by ACO Maldonado with possible discussion and or action.
Good evening, everyone. So, the month of August, we had a total of 25 Team R cases. That's way more than we've done in the past. So we are seeing a decline in that.
which is good. Oh, we'll get to that. So we had a return on one animal. There's some special circumstances on as why we return the animal back to us, but it's a whole conversation. We had 3 intakes for the month of August, not too bad. And then we had a total of 12 cases that were called in for animal control. 2 of those were cruelty and neglect. 2 of those were enforcement on my behalf, and then 7 were stray animals. To look further, in total for that month, we had a total. Sorry. So for the month of August, we had a total of $810.45 overall for animal control. And then you don't have this piece of paper, but we currently have a total of 5 animals in our custody, 4 adult kills, and then 1 in.
I do have, well, we'll finish with that. Is that all for your report?
Yes.
Any questions from the council? I do have an announcement that I probably should have done on the previous one, but we're doing a walkthrough on Tuesday for the animal control facility. The work is done, so we expect to have that walkthrough on Tuesday to finalize, make sure that it's. Okay, thank you, Mr. Maldonado.
Thank you.
And I know it's been a long day. You're free to go. Okay. It is now 6:56 p.m. We're going to move on to item 6. The City Council will now conduct a public hearing to receive public comment on the City of Sandy Oaks proposed annual budget for fiscal year 2020-2021, which runs from October 1 of 2020 to September 30th of 2021. I think what I'd like to do before we entertain comments is to go ahead and present the budget so that everyone has some context. And Catherine, are you going to share that online? The PowerPoint.
Particular paper.
It should be under slideshow and then from beginning. Okay. And share. There we go. Okay, so the very first slide is just announcing the public hearing. The very next slide, each year new properties are added to the tax rolls, and this is a chart that kind of maps the values of those new valued properties that are added, have been added each year. Oh, hold on. Chris is gone.
No, just plug it in.
It is plugged in. Did it turn off again?
Let's try it.
Okay, hold on. Sorry, that way y'all can see it as well. There we go. Okay. So the first year that this data was available was in 2016. And for the last, including this year, but this year and the previous two, we're adding a little over $5 million in new property values to the rolls every year for assessment. The next slide is just giving an indication of, I get the question quite a bit about how many properties do we have out here? How many? And in the Bearcat numbers, they give us a lot of great data as we're working through the budget cycle. And this data comes from one of their very specific slides that talks about the numbers of different properties. So where you see the blue line, which is single family, that is defined as a site built. In the red line, that is the number of mobile homes. So that number has stayed fairly consistent throughout the years. What you're seeing is the green line, which is the vacant lots, is decreasing, and the number of site-built homes is increasing. And they actually have pretty much met 982 and 983 this year. So that's just, it was just an informational thing. In each of those years, you could add the 983 and the 691. That's going to give you the number of households generally that we have out here. It just is a good estimate. Population wise, we won't know that, but a general rule of thumb is 2.5 per household. So you can kind of map that out. You could use 3. I mean, it just depends on, there's no set formula to use for that. The next slide is just identifying our revenue sources over the years. So you can see in our first year of incorporation, we had a whopping $1,847 in revenue from sales tax and $74,772 from franchise fees. And that was all the money that we had to start with. Catherine, is the AC on? Kind of warm. And you can, the purpose of this slide was to kind of show where the various sources of revenue are coming from. And my goal is really to keep the property tax revenue as close to 50% of our total revenue stream as we can. So you can see in 2015 to 16 and 16 and 17, it was closer to 60, but over the years, it's slowly coming back down. So that was just, you can see also last year and this year, we've added in court fines and fees. And sales tax has been a steady climb, which is a good thing. And of course, the more commercial enterprises we can bring out here, the more revenue, the way we're going to keep our property tax low. Okay, so as everyone remembers, we had on November's ballot a bond initiative, and that was approved by the voters. And this slide here represents the repayment schedule as provided by Samco, who is our financial advisor. And at the top, you will see they started the, at the time they were putting all this together, we didn't have 2020 numbers, so they had to base it on 2019 numbers. They're showing growth projections, 3% growth projection for 4 years and no growth after that. Now that doesn't mean they're not expecting any growth out here, but just for this exercise, they only did it for the first 3 years. The bond that was purchased by Frost Bank was for 15 years with a 9-year buyout. And on the right-hand side where it says required INS tax rate, in order to hit these numbers that are due based on the percentage interest rate that we got, these are the minimum numbers that we would need in order to do the payback at the values they've recommended here. And at the bottom, you'll notice that the final rate calculated to be 2.78% versus the 4% estimate that was used during our planning. So we've got a great interest rate on this bond. Then for the bond, this is the actual budget for the bond. So these are budgeted separately. They are separate line items. They are treated separately. They are separate bank accounts. We have received the funds. They are in the bank. So the top line here on the revenue, the income is $800,000. The next line down is the anticipated tax for the bond based on the budget that I put together here. So you'll notice it's a little bit higher. I wanted just a small cushion in there because they had to calculate based on prior year numbers. I just wanted a little bit of a cushion in here to make sure we hit the first year. And I do want to go back because Catherine, can you go back one slide? You'll notice here on the repayment schedule that the interest rate, not the interest rate, the required tax rate decreases over time. So just because we've set it at this rate for this year, we reset it next year. So every year, the INS rate will be adjustable to fit whatever needs. You know, we want to pay the bond off faster, we can keep it at the higher level. If we want to meet the schedule, we can do that and push the other into M&O. Okay, so go back to the next slide, there you go. In this budget, the expense items have already been taken out and they've already been paid. So we had the accounting fees for the work on the bond for Samco identified on here, and the legal fees for Norton Rose, I butcher their name every time, the legal team that wrote the bond. Fulbright, yeah, Norton Rose Fulbright. So that money has already been removed from there. We have $750,000 that has been deposited into an account at Chase Bank. And you'll see here also that the bond interest that will be paid, or I called it bond interest, but it's actually the bond payment, matches what was anticipated to be collected from tax assessment on that. So that was a simple. Okay, next slide. So now we'll go into the M&O piece of the budget. So this is done in two separate views. As part of the planning cycle for budgeting, we have certain timeframes we have to meet. And on the left side where it says proposed budget as originally submitted, that's the budget that I had to submit to Catherine by, I don't remember the date now, it was in August 15th.
Yours is a slideshow, it'll make the slide bigger for them to see. On the slideshow.
Sorry. Okay, here we go. Is that better, guys? Yeah. You have paper anyway. Okay. So on the left-hand side is the first column is the October 19th through October 20. This is our approved amended budget that we did. And I'm comparing that to the next column, which is the original proposed budget that I submitted to Catherine. And so the ad valorem taxes based on the worksheet that I had to prepare for the county, the anticipated taxes will be $366,657. We do have donations that are coming in on a fairly consistent basis for donations to animal control for $600. We're gonna stick with the $70,000 from the prior year for the court fines and fees. Again, we don't have a good look at what that number really should be. We had hoped to have that this year, but COVID-19 threw a monkey wrench in everything. So we'll leave that number as is for now. Fees are fees that are paid for permits and we have application fees that we have in place, so that's what that is. Fiesta Metals, Alderman Walker, I just took a gander at what I put on here for Fiesta Metals, for scholarship and Fiesta Metals, so I don't know. Okay. Well, yes. Is that what on the expense side it does, on the revenue side it doesn't, but we'll Catherine, make a note. When we did the amended budget, we renamed that, and it shouldn't be Fiesta Metals. It should be scholarship, or there was another term that we used. May have to go back to those minutes. Yeah.
We'll also have donations.
Yeah. Okay. The franchise fees, I anticipate it going a little bit higher. You know, what's interesting about that one is that we're seeing a little bit of a decline in our franchise fees from CPS, and I fully anticipated this to happen. You know, as people are replacing their homes, or new homes are being built, or appliances are being replaced, people are buying more energy efficient. So changing out to LED lights, those type of things, they're going to continue to impact our franchise fees. So we're not seeing a big impact here, but I am seeing a slowing trend where we had been seeing a little bit of a spike there for a while. Again, park donations, that's another line item that we have been seeing some consistent activity on. Petty cash is just strictly that between the court and the city clerk for managing expenses. Sales tax revenue, I'm going to be very conservative on that. Nothing would make me happier than to see us exceed that number, but I think for planning purposes, I'd rather be conservative from this standpoint. And then the items that are in yellow are items I failed to budget on the original proposed that I submitted. One of those was abatements, but we're not going to budget for abatements. The two big ones that we needed to address happened this year, and the others I think we can work through a little bit. They're not as drastic as what we had to deal with already. And then Alderman Rapino for the interest on the investment. I just took what happened. That's the, yeah. Yeah.
Doing better now, so maybe we'll get back on track.
Okay, that would be awesome to learn more on that. Okay, so our total, so then let's talk about the right side of the new proposed. The only changes I'm proposing on the revenue side is I increase franchise fees by just a smidge, and I added a line for surplus sales, because if you remember from a recent meeting, we declared surplus the pickup truck that had been used. We just needed a line item to capture any revenue from that. I put $2,000. It doesn't mean that's what we're selling it for. I just picked a number. And then we added text pool. So for the income, total income would be $701,868.25. It will go into the expense side of it. Really, the only changes there are adding a little bit to travel, and that's only because we do have some potential session for possibly ACO training, or it could be another class that the city clerk needs to take. I just wanted to make sure we had some funds in there to account for that. And when we get into the municipal building, on the original submitted budget, I had put in there for an ADA ramp for the municipal building, some just general building maintenance, some maintenance at the municipal building FSP. FSP is former SAWS property, municipal building here in the park, and the utilities and septic at the FSP. And the new proposed, I'm removing the ADA compliance, the municipal building FSP, and the septic FSP. And we're going to put those on a different line. For operating expenses, everything is, the main difference is no city administrator for the amended, well, for the original proposed. And the engineering services, we're backing that down because the engineering work is going to occur within the projects. And then on legal fees, just adjusted that down a little bit. So not much significance there. I mean, the difference is for that particular, the operating expense, I'm sorry, for total services is related to the city administrator, big changes from the previous year, city administrator and the engineering services. On the next item, next page, sorry, election expense. I'm backing that down to $5,000. We have, there's only been one time that we spent anywhere near $8,500, and that was in 2017, and that's only because we had 2 elections. But the cost for elections for our city are very minimal, and so I think $5,000 ought to cover that. Under animal control, so if you remember, for yes,
You're taking out the internal auditor?
yes,
Was it not something that was recommended?
it is
last
recommended.
time
She's
our
on
audit?
maternity leave,
Okay,
and
so
at $435, I think we can absorb that easily when she comes back, and I don't know when that's going to be.
Okay.
Yeah. So animal control, based on the original assumption is based on how we anticipate ending this year. So using the amended budget numbers to start as a starting point for planning for this fiscal year. And one of the biggest changes was in the veterinary services line. A lot of the monies that we've spent on veterinary services, even though that's what we call it, it includes boarding. It includes medical exams. You know, if they're going to stay, they have to get tested. Sometimes they have to get shots, those type things at the animal clinic. So the expectation is that we won't be spending that level of money in that particular line going forward. And then on the containment and facilities, I don't anticipate needing that level of funding going forward because we pretty much have everything we need. There'll be some supplies that we need, but you can see on the next line, we have equipment and supplies. Yes, Alderman Trimley.
So on those expenses, are the utilities for that facility going to be combined with everything else for the city, or are we going to isolate?
All utilities are paid on a separate line item.
So that there's separate meters, isn't it?
You know, like when we get an invoice from CPS, it will say these are street lights, this is the island, this is the municipal building, this is.
So they break it down for us?
They do break it down on the bill, but those are overhead costs. I don't know that I mean, we could certainly entertain how you want to do that.
Well, I'm just wondering, 'cause it'll probably be more than the island. It'll be running air conditioning and heating in there, so I'm sure the utilities are going to be higher for that.
But I think we only have one meter there.
Now, that's what I'm saying.
We're not going to be able to
split
split it out in the future when we move into the other building.
Each building doesn't have a meter?
I don't think
It's all
so.
coming off. I thought
I
they
don't
all
think
had
so.
their separate meters. They don't.
The main meter. Yeah. So we wouldn't have a way to separate it out between, and I mean, so if you think about that, I understand where you're going with that. In the new municipal building, you're going to have public works, you're going to have animal control, you're going to have a marshal, you're going to have the court, you're going to have admin. So realistically, how would you split that out?
Right,
It-
okay.
it's an
So it's a
overhead.
municipal
It's
cost.
just it's an overhead cost.
If anyone feels it's critical.
Well,
you can-
you sure?
No, I said, if anyone feels it's critical, you can add a sub-meter at fairly minimal cost. But, you know, it's the municipal complex. I really don't see that small. A huge user of energy.
I think for the beginning of the operation, the animal control facility, if we could capture what the cost is on average for the beginning, because the municipal building won't be, we won't be moving up there for.
That will be
So-
easy to do because for the very near future, that's the only
Right.
use
Right.
that it's going to be used for.
Right.
On an average, yeah.
All right.
Okay.
In regards to the veterinarian services,
Yes.
I actually had it double that because of TNRs. Because of the amount of TNRs.
Okay.
And that's about 4,000 a year right there.
I did notice a lot of TNR stuff.
We had originally said 50 TNRs split across a quarter. Is what we had discussed at one point. That's $1,000 per quarter.
Do we anticipate that those numbers will go down eventually?
Eventually, I don't know that it's going to happen. Perhaps this next year, yeah, we'll get caught up to a point where it's not going to be that bad. But we still have quite a few left to go.
Okay, so you're proposing that we double that number.
That's what I had calculated was 9,600. That's roughly 800 a month.
Is that all TNR or all
That's come all
of it? Okay.
dogs, everything.
Okay. So I've made a note to correct that. And once we get through the presentation, I'll go to my spreadsheet. We'll fix all that.
That's TNRs, euthanasia and crematory for the dogs that must be put down, and regular veterinarian services
Okay.
that are needed.
Okay. Any other questions on animal control? Okay, we'll move on to the Marshal's Department. So originally, in having a discussion with Marshal Lopez, the goal was to add an additional deputy starting in October. You can see on the new proposed, that's not happening. And there's a couple of reasons why. One is we literally do not have space to add another body in this building. That's number one. Number two, we need to focus on the municipal building and get that up and operational. And so any funds that we had set aside for his department will be funneled into getting that building up and running so that he can have his whole department in this building. I don't know how many people come down here and are aware of what happens. We have the marshal's office. The deputy has a desk outside that office. The next closed building is our closed office is the evidence room and the server room. So that has to remain locked at all times. And then our storage room, we turn into a holding facility. So that's just for the marshal's office in here. Then we have the court in here, and then we have our animal control and our city council meetings and our court. I mean, all of this happens in this relatively small place. So the other side of that is in order to bring another marshal or another deputy on, we need other things. Like they need a vehicle, they need a radio, they need firearms, there's a lot of things that they need in order to do that. So realistically, we couldn't make it happen October 1 to begin with. So I started whittling it down a little bit and said, okay, so we would start then the second quarter. And then the more I thought about it, we really need to focus on municipal complex and get that up and running. And in the end, I had a conversation with Marshall Lopez, who's sitting over here. He understands kind of what we're trying to do and understands that we need to focus on getting our infrastructure in place so that we can move forward with the growth that we're expecting. What I have committed to him is what, if you notice in the budget, there is no carryover funds. I didn't budget for any carryover funds. My expectation is that when the audit is completed, then we'll know what the carryover funds are. So I didn't want to take a guess because we were shorted a significant amount last year. And I just much rather have that as a nice buffer that comes in. And what Marshall Lopez and I are going to work on is to hopefully be able to relook at the budget come April 1st, or prior to then, but we're planning for April 1st to start staffing for a second deputy. So for this exercise, in order to get focused on the projects that we needed to focus on, I stripped out that original submission to add an additional headcount. So that's why you're seeing those numbers decrease.
I would like to just speak at the Marshall's department. I know that the bodies that we have currently, they working their tails off. And I know the city needs, we need 24-hour protection. And I know you're trying to keep the budget at a number where we don't require tax. But I probably speak for a lot of people within the city who wouldn't mind paying a little extra for that added police protection. I wouldn't mind. I don't know what it would take us from the tax rate to get enough to hire another marshal.
Well, I do know the answer to that, but I also need to throw in the fact that, remember, we have a tremendous backlog in our court right now, and we have court hearings that are now being pushed to February. Adding another deputy is only going to compound that problem. So we have to work to clear the backlog as well. But in answer to your question, in order to add an additional $60,000 to the budget, which would cover the additional headcount, it's about 3 cents. I understand that, but so my approach to the budget for this year, we already knew that the bond was going to increase taxes. In light of the financial hardships on everyone related to COVID-19, I didn't feel like this year was the year to not only add the bond, but add a little something extra. So I'm trying to kind of keep it low this year. I understand where you're coming from. I totally agree. And our master plan surveys support exactly what you said.
Sure, I mean, the majority of the people here, that's
exactly what they said.
Is police protection.
It is.
I just would like to.
Well, the
Just
reality
somebody else
is we're not in a
stand
position logistically to do it come October 1 anyway. But I think if we can work towards a April 1st goal, that gives us some time to get the audit completed and figure out what kind of carryover funds we will have. It allows us to make sure that the facility is ready so that we can move over there and do that. It allows us time to clear the backlog in the court.
But we can move on.
Pardon?
We can move on. Not that I'm happy with, but I'm a strong advocate for the Marshals Department. I just think it's one of the most important things within the city.
Oh, I am too. I'm a strong advocate.
That's
Exactly. No, they do a very good job. They're working very hard. We just have to we need to get the resources to support that.
I think the vehicles, the vehicle can just be used by the same individuals. We don't.
Well,
each
it
individual
could.
Doesn't need a vehicle. But
Well, we have the
things.
vehicle, and we have money in the budget here to go ahead and outfit the vehicle. So there's some things that we can do to kind of start working towards that end, but to actually hire somebody now is not feasible today. But we certainly want to do it as soon as we possibly can. Are you in agreement with all this, Marshall Lopez?
Can you hear me? Okay. I mean, at the end of the day, we're going to do our best to cover the city as possible. And so take 6 months. We're going to continue to move forward and do our best to meet the citizens' needs and to cover calls. And obviously, Bexar County is going to assist us as well. Obviously, it takes a little bit off their plate because we're responding within our jurisdiction. So we'll do what we need to. So, and as we progress and move forward, I know it will come.
And we will work on, I mean, most definitely your department is a priority, and we will focus on getting that done. And as soon as we possibly can, we will add that additional headcount for authorization. I don't want to say we're absolutely going to do it, but I have a feeling that would be the outcome. Okay, any other questions or comments on the Marshal's office? Okay, we'll move over to municipal court. Basically, there were, in our original, our budget that we're operating under today, remember this was the first year that we've had the court, so we didn't have a good background on what it costs to run that. You'll see on the the original proposed and the new proposed, for all practical purposes, it's some of the items I decreased only because they were one-time expenses last time to get set up, and we don't have to do that anymore. But on the court clerk, the salary there, I'm increasing that to make it a full-time position, just because we have a backlog and we need somebody that can come in and do this full-time. Doesn't mean that they are going to be required to be working full-time, depending on the workload. And Catherine has stepped up and is doing, the best she can to work with the prosecutor and the judge, and she understands how all this works, but she has another job to do. So we'll talk about court clerk a little bit later. Under operations, just adjusting things just a little bit. Nothing significant going on there. The only item is under National Night Out. I removed the $1,000 because that's already represented under community programs, which was up near the top. There was no need to have that again. And to be honest, I don't know if we're going to have National Night Out this year, depending on how things are. We'll look at it as we get a little bit closer. And then here's the line item you were talking about utilities for electricity. And expectation is to have that, it should still be the same. The bulk of that is street lights, but it does fluctuate a little bit with this building. And then the water, no significant change from the prior budget. Then we go into employee benefits, and I'm proposing so the new proposed, what you're seeing the decrease there is because we removed the headcount for the additional deputy. Insurance, our liability, that would increase a little bit. That has to do with the vehicles, the new building, the things that we're doing. Every time something gets added, Catherine calls and gets it added to the policy. And then under payroll expenses, on the original submission I failed to include the employer portion of taxes. So that's been calculated out and added to the new proposed. Under public works, I did not have a number from the Parks Committee, so I just picked a number. I know last year we had, I think, $25,000, but we all saw how it's a tedious process. Everything takes time and planning, and so even though we had grand ideas, it was difficult to bring them to fruition. So I put $10,000 on that line item for parks projects next year. And then everything else is pretty much the same. Street maintenance.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, if we move out of here and up there, will the community center come out of parks or will it be a administrative?
Probably a new line item. Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure it wasn't going to come out of our 10.
No.
Okay.
No.
All right, thank
No,
you.
there's a separate line item that was under building maintenance.
Okay.
So I've identified this building and the FSP both separately. Under street maintenance, I did take out $10,000 from the original submission and left 5 in there. And the reason for that is we're going to be the road bond. We're going to have road work happening out here, and the patch and repairs that Chris and Mark, when he was in Public Works, were doing. The way they buy the materials, they weren't even hitting $5,000 for the year. So I think that's sufficient for this year. Next slide is the final of the budget. So on the original proposed, I had $5,000 in there for an economic survey. We have since learned that the elusive economic survey and the LMI index that we've been shooting for really comes from the census. So it wouldn't matter if we spent money to get an economic survey done, it still comes from the federal government. So there's no point in even budgeting for that. We're gonna work with what I have learned. We don't have to necessarily wait for the 2020 census numbers, although we do want to push for that. We want to make sure we get those. The census does a I think it's every 2 years. They do an ACS survey. It's a community survey. And so we can get data from there. But I will tell you that it doesn't look, it is contrary to what you hear people talk about our community demographics are. According to the ACS, we're a very prosperous, wealthy Anglo community. I'm just saying that's the importance of the census, folks. Please answer the census. But
Under the proposal that GrantWorks gave us, should there be a need for a survey for any particular grant, they would do that.
they depending on which one. So there was one that they do that there would not be a cost to us to do that. There was one that was a little bit more intense, and it depended on which program you went for. And but she cautioned on that one because it's a random sampling, and if you pick the wrong random people, and that one would cost us money, and then that would shoot us out of the water if it came back unfavorable. So I think right now there is, I think we can work with the ACS data. I hope she and I are going to get together after we get through all the budget planning and elections and everything, and then sit down and kind of work through what available grants may apply.
How long will we have to wait for the actual census data?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I have a feeling it's going to be late next year. It's never immediate. It does take some time.
Okay.
Do you know the answer, Charles?
Normally they have that information available. Sorry. Yeah, normally they have the information available mid-year, but normally the census cuts off a lot earlier than it is this year. So I'm still thinking it's going to be fall of next year, but we would get.
That's kind of what I was anticipating, is it would be late in the year sometime. Okay, so we'll move on. We're on the original budget that I submitted. I had municipal complex infrastructure for 22,158.85. In the proposed, the new proposed, I have removed that. So in the new proposed, what we have is really 2 line items: $7,500 for the scholarship, and $9,945.82 for the municipal building at the former Sauce property. I can tell you right now that that $95,000 is not enough. We're tweaking some of the quotes. Some of the bids came in a little bit higher than we thought they should be. I'll give you an example for a parking lot. And everyone needs to understand these are strictly estimates. When we get into quotes, that's a whole different thing. That's what an estimate is. It's an estimate. When you get to a quote, those typically are more defined, more specific, and they typically have an expiration date on them. So these are strictly estimates in dealing with various contractors. But for I think it was a 9,600 square foot parking lot, was right around $40,000. Well, I can tell you we can't afford that. But what we have to do is we have to have, in order for that building to open, certain things have to happen. One of them is it has to be ADA accessible. In order to be ADA accessible, you have to have handicap parking spaces, and those must be paved. So I've gone back to the individual who, to see, instead of the full 9,600 square feet, what would it cost to pave just the area in front of the building? And we'd make all those designated handicap. In a future year, we could pave the rest of the parking lot if we needed to, but that would satisfy the ADA requirements for that piece of it. The other is the ramp. We've got to have an ADA ramp in order to get into the building. We have 2 metal designs, 1 pressure treated, 1 Trex. So we have a multitude to choose from. It's just ultimately which one makes more sense. And then the other part of that is the inside of the building. Remember, when those units were shipped, they had to disconnect, they had to cut all the water and electric between each of the units. Now, the company that did that, they were very careful in how they did that. And so the reconnection inside the building is not the biggest concern. But of course, that needs to be done. We have to have that work done on the inside. And then the other piece of that is we had the separate project that was recently completed for the municipal infrastructure, which brought utilities to the property. Then we have to connect that building to that infrastructure. That bid came in higher than what I would have anticipated. And for a couple of reasons. Number one, the cost. Number two, the complexity of that one. That and the parking lot, of all the work that needs to be done up there, those 2 are the only 2 that really require the engineer to be involved. And with the electrical and water, due to the price and everything, that needs to be a competitive bid. And of course, we would like for our city engineer to assist with that. So the whole point in that whole discussion is, yes, it looks like a lot of money there. It's not enough to do everything that needs to be done, but I think we can make it work to get that building open. One of the other reasons that getting that building open, in addition to everything we've already talked about, is remember, we bought this through the federal surplus program. And the federal surplus program has a stipulation that you have 1 year to put any purchases into use. That's January. But I've had a conversation with them. They understand the scope, and this was a much bigger, this is different than going and buying a generator. This is a much bigger thing. They are certainly willing to work with us on that, but we have to be demonstrating progress in order for them to allow, and we do periodic, every quarter we get a report from them that says this item you purchased, when did it go in service, what's the status? And so I've been in contact with them on that. So, and the consequence of not putting it in service is you have to pay the full price. Remember, we bought that building for $4,500. The full price is $210,000. We certainly don't have that kind of money. But between the purchase of the building, the transportation of the building, that ran right at about $50,000. We're talking about another $130,000 in total scope. For under $200,000 to get a 5,000 square foot municipal building is, in my mind, not a bad deal. I mean, you can't get a house for that. Now, granted, there are things that we have to deal with in this building that we don't have to deal with in a typical residential setting. But so that's kind of the, this is the overview of what has been presented. And back to Ms. Walker, she's suggesting that we add another $4,800. And so what I'm going to recommend is that we take that $4,800 from this line item, this municipal FSP, because I think we can replenish that with some other funds. I was very conservative on this budget just because I don't like doing budget amendments. They're a lot of work. And I anticipate things hopefully being better on the revenue side than what we have budgeted. And that's also why I did not budget anything for reserve funds.
Would it not be wise just to leave the animal?
Leave it there for now?
Leave that there, and if 6 months down the road you need money.
Because we are going to have to do a budget amendment when we get the carryover anyway.
Yeah, I did the math on the improvements for the complex as well, and the 96 is not going to cut it. You're still about $35,000 short.
That's what I think.
But to move forward on say the paving right now, while the cost of oil is down, it's an oil related asphalt. It'd be wise to be take care of that. Oil prices go up.
Exactly.
And as far as the ADA ramp, we might look at doing something more.
We had not considered that one. And in talking with M&S Engineering, there is no need to engage them in any work related to the AD. What we have is one of the quotes, and I think you have it. It was from Red. I mean, there's firms, there's companies that actually do this for them, and actually, I was told there. I mean, if you want to pay us to do that from the engineer, of course we'll do it, but it's not required.
But anyway, so my
Yeah.
if you feel we're going to have to come back to amend the FSP portion, why not just leave that as it is? And if you're going to amend, you can amend it. That
And we know we're going to have to amend it after the audit anyway.
Right.
But I've made a notation here that we. Okay, so we did have a question. No, not that one.
I'm gonna stop sharing the screen.
Okay, you can stop sharing the screen. So, hold on, I have to get back to the script. Okay, we did have a question that was sent in from Douglas Tomasini. And he does have a question. Number one, does the proposed 2020-2021 budget include funds for the municipal complex driveway, parking lot, and security lighting? Driveway, no. Parking lot, we talked about. Security lighting, that is included in here as part of what IT is doing for security with the cameras and everything.
The building itself has several
It
security
does
lights
have
on the
security
outside
lights
of the
on the
building.
outside. And once we get the everything connected, then it would be very easy to add security lights. And then the second question was, from what line item or items will the municipal complex driveway, parking lot, and security lighting be paid? It would be from this reserve funding section under assigned funds, and it's called municipal building FSP. All of that would be included in the same, we would track all of the expenses for that. And I don't know, Ms. Yelton, is Mr. Thomas on the line?
Mr. Tomasini?
Yes, everything. I thought that was under IT. No, IT provided me numbers for the wiring. Okay, that's all in this big number. Okay.
I'm not sure if he's on the line. I don't see his name.
Before I close public comment, I do want to ask if there is anyone else who would like to speak who did not speak. And I'll let Ms. Yelton manage that. If you'd like to speak, either raise your hand, or if you're on your phone, I guess just
Unmute yourself.
unmute yourself and ask to be heard. No questions?
No.
No comments? Okay. Any additional comments from council before I close public hearing? Okay. It is 7:50 p.m. This concludes the public part of the budget hearing as required by state law. Okay, now I can go back to my notes here. Item 7A, discuss and or possible action on the proposed 2020-2021 fiscal year budget for the city of Sandy Oaks. And so we're now going to go to item 7A and discuss the budget, and we can either vote on adopting the budget or postpone the adoption of the budget for another day. But you need to remember that we cannot approve the budget and set the tax rate in the same meeting. And all of this has to be completed before the end of this month.
I think we've pretty much discussed the budget as we went through it. I would move to approve an ordinance adopting the 2021 fiscal budget.
Wait. Two things. 7A. 7B is the ordinance.
What, Mayor? Before, since there was a proposed budget originally filed and then suggestions, I would advise having those suggestions be amendments to the proposed budget. So when the budget is adopted, it is adopted with those amendments, and instead of going line item by line item, it could be adopted, or it could be worded as by the page, or as the new with the new proposed budget attached as the amendments. Does that make sense?
Councilor, the motion would be to approve the budget as presented.
But what she's saying is, the original proposed budget is not what we're approving. So there's two things. We would have normally approved the proposed as submitted, but I'm proposing another proposed. That's the difference.
This is the one you proposed this.
This one. Yes.
But that's not what she filed with the city.
That's not what I filed with the city. I filed the original over here on the left. So she's saying that we need a motion to approve amendment. So Cassandra, correct me, we need to approve the proposed as originally submitted and then the motion to approve the amendments as presented?
No, first, a motion to amend the proposed budget as discussed.
Okay,
And it could be in its entirety, or the amendments in their entirety. And then that would require a vote of council, and then a second motion to approve an ordinance approving the budget with amendments.
but wouldn't that be 7B?
No, that's ratifying the process. 7A,
Oh, sorry.
So 7A would have a two-part motion. One would be to approve the budget with the amendments as discussed and presented, and then a second one to approve the ordinance approving the budget with the amendments. So in other words, the new proposed budget are the amendments.
Got it.
Because typically I would recommend individual line items being, but if everything is going to be, if y'all are going to discuss, if someone is going to make a motion to approve just every amendment or everything on the new proposed budget as presented, that it can be with all those amendments.
Okay. So we're on 7A, which is, we're waiting on a motion, if anyone would care to do so.
All right. Move to approve the budget with amendments as presented with all line items amended as noted.
So we have a motion by Alderman Tremblay to approve all amendments as presented for the proposed budget. And a second by Alderman Rapino. And do I need a record vote on this one, Cassandra?
Not on the amendments, just on the ordinance adopting the final budget.
So for the motion that's on the table, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. That motion carries. Now we move on to the actual ordinance. It does.
I'll move to approve an ordinance adopting 2020-2021 fiscal year budget presented to the city council by the mayor. These amendments would support general government of the city of Sandy Oaks to be fixed and determined for said terms in accordance with the expenditures shown in the city's fiscal year 2020-2021 budget.
Okay, we have a motion and a second from Alderman Tremblay and Alderman Rapino respectively to approve an ordinance adopting the 2020-2021 fiscal year budget. And if I'm not mistaken, this does require a record vote.
Yes, a record vote.
Okay, so I will call each name and you'll give me a yay or nay, please. Alderman Rapino,
Yay.
Alderman Tremblay,
Yay.
Alderman Walker, Alderman Fillinger.
Yay.
Okay, that is unanimous. So that carries.
Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
I also recommend noting that Alderman Yelton is absent for and therefore did not vote for the record.
And yes, Alderman Yelton is absent and did not vote on this motion for the ordinance. Okay, let's move on to item 7B. Discuss and or possible action on an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Sandy Oaks ratifying the property tax increase reflected in the 2020-2021 fiscal year budget. Now, what's important This is not approving the tax rate. This is just approving, ratifying the property tax increase that's reflected. And there is a handout. Catherine, did you print that one out? Oh, that showed the cover sheet.
Oh, I did
Just the one from the what was on the proposed. Find it real quick. Ah. Catherine, you haven't fixed it on the website. No, it says that page doesn't exist. I'm looking for this cover sheet here that talks about. Yeah, yeah, that may work. Actually, I can get it here on the homepage. I don't even see it on here anymore. You moved it off the homepage? Budget? The job opening?
Yeah, and then under
Oh,
that,
proposed budget, there you go. Okay, this is what I'm looking for. Okay. So what this says is for, make that bigger. Get this away. So this is saying that the budget will raise more total property taxes than last year, and it doesn't mean more tax, it means more money from taxes than last year's budget by $96,383.72, and 4.78% is what that equates to. And of that amount, $15,101.06 is tax revenue to be raised from new property added to the tax roll this year. So that, I know that $96,000 looks like a lot, but if you remember, that includes our debt, which was $75,000. And then you have the 15 from the new properties, and the rest is just minuscule rounding. So that's what I was talking about here for ratifying the property tax reflected in the proposed budget. So if anyone would like to make a motion on item 7B.
I move that we adopt an ordinance ratifying property tax increase reflected in this year 2020-2021 budget, the amount of $96,383.72 or 4.78%. And of that amount, $15,100 is tax revenue to be raised from new property tax added to the tax roll this year as reflected in the 2020-2021 fiscal year budget adopted on September 10th, 2020.
Okay, so we have a motion by Alderman Tremblay and a second by Alderman Rapino on adopting the ordinance ratifying the property tax increase reflected in the 2020-2021 fiscal year budget. And Ms. Ortiz, is this also a record vote?
I suggest a record vote also.
I didn't hear that, I'm sorry.
Yes, a record vote.
Okay. Okay, so I will call your names and please answer yea or nay. Alderman Rapino.
Yay.
Alderman Tremblay.
Yay.
Alderman Walker. Yay. Alderman Bellinger.
Yay.
Alderman Yelton is absent and did not vote. So this motion carries. Okay. Item 7C Discuss and or possible action to set the proposed tax rate for 2020. Set a meeting date to adopt the 2020 tax rate to support the 2020-2021 fiscal year budget and publish notice of a proposed tax rate. So the tax rate comes from and this is just for, we're not approving it, we're just, we're setting the rate and then setting the date for when we will actually approve that rate. Is that correct?
Yes, you're approving what the proposed tax rate will be at the next meeting, what the council will consider at the next meeting and the hearing date.
Okay. And that tax rate is 0.291976. That is the combined value of our maintenance and operation and our interest and sinking fund. So our debt and our operations combined together will equal this rate. We do, and there's a.
I got it. I move the city council set the tax rate of 0.291976 as the proposed tax rate for 2020 to be considered for adoption and public hearing on the proposed tax rate to be held at the September 24th, 2020 regular meeting with notice to be published in the Wilson County News.
So we have a motion by Alderman Rapino to set the tax rate at 0.291976 and adoption at the September 24th regular meeting and notice to be published in Wilson County News. We have a second. Alderman Walker seconds. Ms. Ortiz, do I need a record vote on this one as well?
No, you don't need a record vote, but I would suggest having one anyways, since it does have to do with the tax rate.
Perfect. Okay, so as I call your names, please answer yay or nay. Alderman Rapino.
Yay.
Alderman Tremblay.
Yay.
Alderman Walker.
Yay.
Alderman Fillinger.
Yay.
And Alderman Yelton is absent and did not vote, and that motion carries. Okay. Okay, and that's the end of the big part of the budget. Item 7D is discuss and or possible action on resignation letter received from Alderman Michael E. Yelton Sr. And unfortunately, Mr. Yelton has decided that it's in the best interest of both himself and the city that he resign at this time. It's for personal reasons. I don't know that it's a big secret, but he does have some health concerns at the moment, not COVID related before that starts, totally unrelated, but his health is of utmost importance, and he does not feel that he would be able to dedicate the time necessary for the job at this time. So we will, I will entertain a motion to accept his resignation. Reluctantly.
Yes, having been through this situation, I move that we accept reluctantly the resignation of Alderman Yelton.
And I'll second that reluctantly.
Okay, well, reluctantly, we have a motion. Alderman Fillinger and seconded by Alderman Rapino to accept the resignation letter for Alderman Yelton. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Okay, item 7E Discuss and or possible action on procedures for filling the position of Alderman 5 for the unexpired term and or a resolution to fill the vacancy of Alderman Place 5 for an unexpired term by appointment until the next regular municipal election or by special election. We should have hopefully somebody online. I would like to make a nomination. Had a conversation with a lady who is interested in setting up, and she's sort of new to the neighborhood. She's been here since May of 2019. Moved here from somewhere else in Bexar County, lives here now and loves it out here, and is very interested in being involved with the city. Ms. Yelton, is she on the phone? Jennifer?
I'm here.
Hey, Jen. So
Hi.
I would like to make a nomination that Ms. Jennifer Puente be nominated for the position of Alderman Place 5. And I would like to ask Ms. Puente if she is willing to accept that nomination.
Yes, I am.
Perfect. Thank you, ma'am. So with that said, I need a motion from the floor.
I will move to accept the nomination of Jennifer Puente to fill Alderman Place 5.
And I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion by Alderman Tremblay and a second by Alderman Rapino to appoint Ms. Jennifer Puente to Alderman Place 5. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? That motion carries. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited.
So for item number F on the agenda, Ms. Ortiz, what I would suggest is that I make arrangements with Ms. Puente to come down to City Hall sometime in the coming week, and I'll administer the oath of office at that time, if that's okay. I'd much rather have her in person than try to do this over Zoom.
Yeah, she doesn't need it. Well, she does need the oath of office at City Hall, so, and it doesn't need to be in a meeting. So if you administer the oath of office, make those arrangements, she can be sworn in at City Hall by you.
Okay.
Do you need other council members to be
We
present?
can have witnesses if you. We have
Is it
cameras.
required?
It's not required.
Okay.
If there are other council members and it's going to be a quorum, then an agenda should be posted.
Now we'll use the marshal, if we need witnesses, we have cameras, so. Jennifer, I will be getting in contact with you. We'll set up a time sometime this next week and get you to fill out the paperwork or sign the oath and take the oath of office. Yes.
Okay, sounds good.
Hold on just one moment. Alderman Fillinger has a question.
Yes, ma'am. I did not hear where we made a motion to adopt a resolution.
Yeah.
And on Mr. Yelton's resignation.
We have it, we just did not.
I understand that we accepted the resignation, but I didn't hear a motion to approve the resolution.
You're the smartest man in here. Okay.
So if I'm sorry, Ms. Puente, for interrupting.
We want to make sure we get this right.
But yes. I would like to move that we accept City of San Diego's resolution number 2020-120, a resolution of the City Council of the City of San Diego, Texas, filling the vacancy on the City Council for the unexpired term of Alderman Place 5 by appointment.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Alderman Fillinger and a second by Alderman Rapino to approve resolution 2020-120. And all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous and the motion carries. Okay, Ms. Ortiz, we did things not in the proper sequence, but we did it. Are we good, or do we need to do something different?
No, you're good.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Jennifer, I'll be reaching out to you in the coming days, and we'll schedule something.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, do we have Jared on the line?
Hello, can you hear me?
Hey, Jared.
All right.
Normally I'm using Zoom. Today I am not. I would have been prompted that you were there waiting on us. So I apologize for that.
It's been an exciting meeting.
G on the agenda is a presentation by M&S Engineering on proposal to provide engineering services related to the design, bidding, and construction of the 2019 street maintenance program. So I'm gonna ask a question on that. On the agenda, it is referenced as 2019 street maintenance program. That is also known as the 2020 road bond. Cassandra, is that acceptable? Is that an interchangeable term?
I think the street maintenance program is reflective of the bond, of what the bond is.
Okay. Okay, and so I know that we have Jared Mott on the line with us from M&S Engineering. So I will let Jared take over and explain kind of what the process is and the plan of action is and where we are and what needs to happen. Go ahead, Jared.
All right, thank you. The next steps for the bond project are to actually start designing the plans for that. There's a list of streets from the maintenance or the bond project that have already been, I guess, appointed for some work. The work that we'll be doing is a 2-course surface treatment. You may have heard of it as a chip seal or a seal coat. Essentially what that is an overlay on top of the existing asphalt. They'll spray asphalt emulsion on it and then lay some aggregate and then roll that aggregate into the roadway. And that'll provide a new wearing surface to the road that will give it more life, extend the life of the road. There's a whole bunch of factors that wear down the road, biggest one being water, but there's also oxidation just over time. Even if everything's kept perfect, it'll wear down eventually. So this treatment lasts 7 to 10 years, and the way that it's typically done is we'll go as laid out in the scope of work that we have, do some research and data collection. We'll go photograph the project locations, collect some available information from the project, utility information, things that we want to be able to avoid when the construction is happening. Next, we'll be doing mapping. We'll use aerial photography for this. The surface treatment doesn't require any vertical information, so it's just going to be a picture and looking at areas to be able to do everything. We'll be mapping the existing surface features, where water valves are, where manholes are. They'll need to be able to avoid those and keep those properly functioning after they're done with everything. After all that, we'll be going to the design. We'll need to develop plan views of the areas to be worked on, showing where all those existing surface features are. We'll be developing a traffic control plan to keep traffic moving through while they're doing all this work, laying out a sequence of the work, and providing standard details, specifications needed. On top of this, my understanding is there is also some pothole and shoulder repair, mainly in the areas of New Mathis Road. we'll be looking at that during the mapping and design period. The bond project and specifically look at that. So we'll see the extent of what's needed and work with the city to be able to come up with I guess a scope that will be in budget with the city to be able to do as much as we can. Past that, we'll be doing bid documents to get everything ready for going out to bid. We're going to have a city review. We're going to come and sit down with you once we have an 85% set done. That'll have an proposed cost estimate for the construction. We'll sit down and we'll look at everything being proposed and the costs and make sure that everything that we're doing is what the city would like. And then if there's any changes, we'll go do revision and then submit 100% for review and approval for the city. With that, once it's approved, we can go to the bid phase services, which is the typical putting everything out for bid. We're going to use the type of contractors that you see. They specialize in this sort of work. They usually run all around Texas, and we'll have to coordinate a slot essentially to get over to Sandy Oaks and be able to do this work. But with that, we're fairly confident that a low bid will be a good plan for what we're proposing. Then, have the bid opening meeting, any addenda, and award or provide a recommendation of award to the city. Once the project is awarded, then we can move to construction phase services. This whole thing really isn't going to take that long. The biggest thing is timing for these contractors to be able to move their equipment down here and get set up to do their process. I expect everything to be done within a week once they get here. So we're giving them roughly a month, and we'll look at how it is going to be coming in, what time of year to see if that'll be a good amount of time to allow these contractors to adjust their schedules. But it shouldn't be anything complicated. The rock that's the aggregate that's placed down, the biggest things that you'll see during the construction are going to be some loose rock. With that, the contractor will be broom sweeping everything after they're done placing and rolling everything in, but that does need some time to cure. So typically cars will be able to go on it, but we'll ask that they go slower because that will kind of kick up some of those rocks, but it will harden and settle down over time. The other thing, it's not necessarily an asphalt overlay, which is, I think, a lot of what we're used to, the quiet roads. This will have some noise associated with it. Just want to make you aware of that. It will dissipate as the traffic drives over it and makes everything smoother and harder. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
So I do have a question for you, Jared. In the
Sure.
Project description section, the total budget for engineering and construction is approximately $724,700. Back here on the compensation piece, the 50,800 is included in that 724,700 or added to that?
That number at the top was information that we had received, I believe, during the bond project. So that would include engineering, but ultimately this is going to be, I don't know the extents of pothole repair or shoulder repair and what's going to be required. So I think there's going to be a little bit of give and take, trying to understand what budget the city wants to maintain and what we can afford doing with the two-course surface treatment.
But just so I'm clear, the 724,700 includes this 55,800 that is noted back here under compensation, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then I know that you went through the different steps that, like the research and data collection and the design mapping. Do you have a feel for the amount of time for each of these various stages that would be needed? And then just so we can kind of have an idea what to expect before
sure.
Sure. Discussion about the overall design.
So we're planning on getting an 85% design to the city within 5 weeks of notice to proceed. So that's going to include all those steps. As soon as we have notice to proceed, we're going to get people out there, get our aerial drone out there running so we can get all the information that we need.
And so once the 85% is reached, then, oh, I see here on the schedule. Okay, 5 weeks. Final time to, so we're looking realistically sometime after the first of the year before we would actually, assuming everything goes as scheduled, it would be, the earliest would be sometime after the first of the year before we would see any actual work beginning. Is that correct?
Yeah, it would be close to that.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm only asking that just because of, weather. That can be an issue. We get into the wet and the cold season. Is that the right time to start that, or should we look at maybe starting in the spring? I don't know. Does it make a difference?
Yeah, there is a season for paving, and yeah, you don't want to do this when it's wet, cold. It can be a bit colder, but freezing temperatures, no. The big thing is the asphalt emulsion needs to set properly. I don't know off the top of my head the exact specifications needed, but yeah, we definitely don't want to have things starting to hit in March when it gets really cold. So
February is not probably an ideal time to be doing that. Okay, well that's good to know. Any questions from anyone on the council on this? Okay. Well, Jared, I appreciate your time on doing the presentation. If you want to stick around, we're going to talk about you again.
Thank you very much.
So item H is discuss and/or possible action on task order TA-014 from M&S Engineering. This is the one that you have in your packet that he just went through. And it has all of the specifics that he just spoke of. I do know that this, and Jared, correct me if I'm wrong, this document here is the same as what was provided back in the early planning when we were talking about the bond. There hasn't been much change to this, correct?
Yeah, the only thing that we really added was the pothole and shoulder repair.
Right. And in having a discussion with Jared on this, I know that what we're looking to do with the road bond is to resurface, do an overlay treatment. But I think there are some areas around the city that we need to also consider some type of walkway, a smooth area. And I'm thinking along the major artery. So New Mathis Road would be one. And since that's on the project here, whether that be expanding the width of the road or doing some other treatment in that area. And so he and I've kind of had a little bit of a discussion on that, but I think as we get more into the design discussion of this, we can talk about that a little bit more. And remember, we can always, not this year, but we can always add our own funds to this project. So if it's something, you're talking about 6 months for the contractor to do all of the roads. I'm sorry, a month for the contractor to have all the roads completed?
All of the 2-course surface treatment, I expect all of that to happen in a week. So it's just a matter of scheduling.
Wow.
Getting the contractor out here.
That's pretty good. Okay. So I will open this up to the council members. Do you have any comments, questions, concerns? I'll entertain a motion from somebody.
I'll move we approve task order TA014 from M&S Engineering and authorize the mayor to act as the designated representative for the task order.
Okay, we have a motion by Alderman Tremblay and a second by Alderman Rapino to approve task order TA014 from M&S Engineering and authorizing the mayor to act on behalf of the designated representative for the task order. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Jared, we will get the signed document to you probably tomorrow.
All right, thank you very much.
I want to thank you for your time, and I apologize for having you wait so long. Like I said, normally I'm sitting in front of Zoom. Tonight I'm not, so. But thank you for that. Okay, we'll move on to item 10B. I'm sorry, 10A. Updates and announcements. Yes.
I'd like to request a 15-minute recess at this time.
We're almost done. But we may do that since you requested so nicely. It is, hold on, get to that screen. It's 8:32 p.m. We are going to call a recess for 15 minutes. And we will be back.
Zoom recording. I'm going to turn this back on. I'm going to turn the video back on. Turn that one back on?
I've got this recorder on this.
Yes, we're ready now.
Okay. It is 8:47. We are going to call the session back in order at 8:47 p.m. We're going to move to item 10A, updates and announcements from Park Advisory Committee Chair Tom Rapino and possible discussion or action.
Yes, we, some of the projects we have going on right now, tomorrow morning, weather permitting, Charles, I, and Ann are going to investigate putting up the sunshade for the playground area. I did want to mention that former Alderman Thomasini has care of the graffiti on the playground equipment. That hasn't happened yet, but he has the paint and he will do that as soon as the weather clears, I think. The restroom interior have been painted. Right now, I'm seeking to find this bonded wood fiber so that we can possibly use it to resurface the playground, but I've been all the way up to Canada trying to locate stuff. I finally located somebody in Franklin, Kentucky that does the job. He's going to send me a quote. But from talking to him, I think it's going to be expensive. I also talked to M&S, and they're going to send me to a local playground architect who may be able to find a local supplier of that particular material. It's called bonded wood fiber. For playground service. Yeah, I went to Keller and several, I've called all around the city, all these suppliers of rubber mulch. Oh, yeah, rubber mulch costs a fortune. Yeah, and Ford rubber surface is yeah, like $22,000. The AstroTurf is astronomical too. So and the wood fiber that they recommended doesn't look good. I was thinking of I have crushed granite. It's real fine, but I don't know if we want to use that. I use it in my yard.
Yeah, but remember, for the ADA compliance, we have to make sure that whatever material is put down is wheelchair accessible. That was one of the challenges.
It's pretty
As long as it's compacted really well.
Compacted, yeah.
But decomposed granite's very expensive.
Yeah, it's expensive, but
I'd like to address that.
go ahead.
Neither soil, sun, or any form of gravel is an approved surface for a playground. I know that's what we have, but we need to get away from it. It has zero fall protection.
Yeah, I know.
So, you know, if we were making a walkway, I'd say, yeah, let's look at crushed granite. But for a playground surface, it's just not.
We'll have to look at pricing. Good. But
So
I'm
I'll be
looking.
curious to hear how tomorrow goes with the sunshade.
Yeah. Well, we're not going to put it up. Investigate how to do it.
Okay.
So, and that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Item 11A, discuss and or possible action on applications received to fill the vacancy of court clerk and appoint a court clerk if necessary. So we did post the job ad, and we had specific requirements for that position. We did receive 3 applications. Only one of the applications was qualified for the position. Unfortunately, they accepted another job offer. I know. So we're back to square one. So my recommendation on that is let's repost it again, and let's do it ahead of, just like we did for this meeting, to accept applications through the 23rd, and then have hopefully candidates for the meeting on the 24th is what I would recommend.
Can we ask, is public hearing being about?
Sandra, that's a good question. So we were going to, the agenda item is for possible action on the applications received. Can we expand on that, on reposting?
I think if none of the applications were acceptable by council, then the action can be to extend the application process or the application period.
Thank you.
And the action taken at the last meeting would just carry over. You don't need to restate the action taken at the last meeting, just the application timeline would be reopened until the 23rd.
Okay. Okay, would someone like to make a motion on that then?
Yes, ma'am. I'll make a motion that we extend the applications to the same venues we used before with a deadline of September 23rd.
5 p.m. 5 p.m.
By 5 p.m.
Okay, we have a motion by Alderman Fillinger to extend the deadline for applications to 5 p.m. on September 23rd. Do we have a second? Alderman Walker seconds. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Therefore, we will remove I'll pull item 11B. And with that, it is 8:55 and we are adjourned. Have a great evening, everyone. Thank you.